right, Dancing Queen, what are we talking about tonight?
Hello and welcome to Messages and Methods. I'm your host, Shelley, Carney.
And I'm her co-host, Toby Younis.
That's right. Tonight we're going to be talking about Toby and how he has become the go-to guy for people with tech problems.
Since I was about 5, I think.
Now we're going to talk all about it. Story time.
If you are in your 50s or older, we've got something wonderful to share with you. Do you want to produce a live stream, podcast, and blog to quickly expand your brand and business? Or would you like to visit with us, tell us your story and share your message with the world? Experience Messages and Methods live stream podcast with Shelley, Carney, and Toby Younis. Every week we come together to discuss topics related to encore entrepreneurs, content marketing, live streaming video, podcasting, and blogging. We share stories, experiences, and knowledge to help others in their journey to creating a highly visible online presence. Subscribe today and become a part of our treasured community.
Reducing anxiety.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fixing frustration.
Fixing frustrations. That's what we do.
We do it all, man. We do it all. Are you ready to start?
I'm ready whenever you are. You're
All
the
right,
boss.
all
I'm
right.
just here for the
So
fast driving.
tonight's about you, about your story. And I'm going to tell why. First, I'm going to say why we're doing this. Why are we talking about this? One of the things that we offer as a team, AGK Media Studio, is troubleshooting technology, getting your tech to work, right? A lot of times they'll talk to coaches and friends, and they'll watch YouTube videos, and they'll watch other people on, podcasting and look into Facebook groups and ask people, what do you use for equipment, or this or that? And they end up piecemealing their studio equipment together. Sometimes it doesn't integrate well, right? Sometimes they're using software because it was free, when if they'd pay a little bit more every month, they would have saved themselves a whole lot of time and headaches and frustration. So what we're trying to do is explain that we can help you with your tech problems, because we have a tech expert over here who is troubleshooting all the time. We did a lot of troubleshooting last week
On our own.
on our own products and we're having our own issues, right? And we have to solve them all the time. That's how come we know we can do this. But number two, the reason we got into this business is because people were coming to Toby anyway, all his life, asking him for help, because he always kept on the front lines, on the front edge of technology and what was coming out and what's new and how does it work. And he wanted to learn it all and know it all. And he ended up being the go-to guy. But we're going to get into his story. Instead of me telling it, we're going to have him tell it. Toby, how did you become the go-to guy for people with tech problems?
So long story short, because I'm going to make a short story long in just a minute.
Okay.
Long story short, it's the result of two things. Number one, ever since I left military service in 1974, I have been an independent contractor. Even when I was working with the National Security Agency, I worked pretty much on my own. And I liked it that way, and the people that I worked for liked it that way. They were okay. As I got into my own business, it was a one-person business, and I pitched it that way. And I had the benefit of it. I had a lot of benefits: veteran, Hispanic, disabled veteran, top secret clearance. Mm. So that gave me an in with agencies that had those requirements, almost made them requirements for those opportunities that only required one person. It was a one-person job, and they needed the one person that could do that job. So it worked out really well for me. And but because I was a single person, I had to solve all my own problems. I didn't have an administrative assistant back at the office on K Street in Washington that I could call and say, hey, my flight for all the flights have been canceled for the next 3 days. I need to move from where I am right now in Jeddah to someplace else. I had to solve those problems myself. There was no backup.
And you didn't have an IT department of
Right. So
and
it wasn't and you looked at it, if you consider what I was doing, I didn't have an audio guy. I didn't have a lighting guy. I didn't have a camera guy. I didn't have a director. I didn't have a producer. I didn't have a logistics person. I didn't have a travel person. I didn't have any of those things, nor honestly would I wanted one, because there were several times in my career that I had to make decisions that said, do I need to grow this business? Don't I need this person? And what was interesting about it is a lot of the jobs that I was recruited to do were based on the fact that I didn't have any corporate baggage, right? I was one guy. They knew where I was all the time. They didn't have to call anybody else. I had half the time I was carrying when they were made available. I had a satellite phone so that they could reach out to me directly, So that was the first part. The first part was I didn't have much of a choice because I didn't have anybody else. I had to solve my own problems. Whether it was a technical problem, a logistics problem, a financial problem, I had to do them all. And I got really good at it. So because they were constantly coming up, and I knew the nice thing about problems is that they are predictable, meaning there's nothing that runs perfect in that world. You're going to have problems. Yeah, and especially in that world, because you don't have a lot of outside support anyway. It's a very closed community. So that was the first thing. The second thing is there's a part of my, and I don't mean to sound like I'm going to brag. This is not bragging or even kind of talking out of what do you call it? Out of turn. I've always enjoyed helping people. So when I know something and someone needs help in that area, I have no problem helping them. And so now not only was I solving my own problems, but I was solving other people's problems. And that gave me a whole new portfolio of problems that I may not have had experience with, except that someone asked me to help. And after a while, there was a point at which in my lengthy 35-year career, I was the troubleshooting guy. And I will take this all back to that conversation that you guys have heard more than once about that I had with the youngest command sergeant major in the Army. And I asked the question out of turn, how did you become the youngest command sergeant major? And basically he said, I'm going to use his word. This was his word, not mine. He said, I took every shit job that nobody else wanted. And that's kind of where I was at. I took every job that nobody else wanted. And after a while, I got a reputation for the guy that would take the job that nobody else wanted. And the reason nobody else wanted it is because they knew there were going to be a lot of problems with it. The reason I took it was because I was confident that I could solve those problems. So it was a combination of facing the problems on my own because I had to make a business out of it. And then my I don't know if it's willingness, but my being okay with helping other people, sometimes even when they were competitors. There isn't a lot of competition in that market anyway. So when you're helping someone, you're helping usually someone who's going to compete with you for the next contract, for the next sole source, not sole source, but the sole person contract. So I think it was those two things. And I just made a career of it. You and I have known each other since the days at when we were making the television program, Spanish Colonial Art and Artists. And that was a real problem solver because for as good as that film program was at CNM, they knew nothing about television production, even though they had literally a room full of technical equipment to do it. It was just never used that way. That wasn't how they were. That's not what a film program does. You don't teach people television. And I'm not even sure how they ended up with the equipment. What's his name? What was the film program? He had kind of a funny name.
You mean Grub?
Grub.
But I think it was Jim not Jim.
Yeah.
It was the other guy.
Yeah,
I can't
that was
think of his
the
name
head of the
right now.
program. And I asked him one time,
Mhm.
so why do you
Yeah.
have all that television production equipment? He said,
Yeah.
well, one day we're going to start a TV production,
Hmm.
program
Hmm.
in there. Um,
It was the other guy, and he also ordered equipment for West. Remember him?
yeah,
He
that's
got
right.
a hold of that equipment because he used to work in television.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was interesting because I was recruited by an organization called West because they had the same problem. They had this big investment in a massive production studio, including, an infinite wall green screen and lighting that you could have. I used to say you could have put this lighting at Pope Joy Hall, and it didn't work. It had never been used, and so they hired me to get it to the point where it was usable. And I hired a team. Shelley, were you on that? You were on that team, right?
No, it was Sean and Sue.
Oh, Sean and Sue, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's always been problems that have been presented that I've had to troubleshoot in order to solve, learning along the way. And one of the benefits of doing it that way is once you've done it once, you don't forget the next time. You develop a series of, tools that enable you to troubleshoot those problems with confidence. So do we have a
Just saying hi.
hi? Shots.
So tell us a little about what you did in your position at UPublic, how you got the position, what you did in that position, and what sorts of troubleshooting were necessary for you to accomplish in that position.
So UPublic had taken over the contract for the public access station in Albuquerque. There's only one public access station. And I don't know how much they're not public television stations. Public access stations were a byproduct of the fact that cable television was coming in, and each cities were making deals with the cable television that said a certain amount of their profit had to be put into a channel for public access, that anybody could use that channel. And if you still have them in your towns, some of them are very good and have great reputations. I worked for several of them. Others are just like, ooh, whoa, that was really bad.
Now, is that different than, say, government, like small town, like our Rio Rancho? They have
the government channel.
They record the city council meetings.
So generally speaking, anytime a cable company came in to let's use Rio Rancho as an example, a cable company would come in. Rio Rancho has to agree to, because they're a utility at that point, right?
Mhm.
Rio Rancho has them. Well, that's why there's only one. Right. More recently, they're allowing multiples because it's a lot easier to do it. But back then, it was Comcast would come in, they'd make a deal with Rio Rancho. Rio Rancho would say, okay, you will be allowed to install your services in our community under the following conditions. You will pay us this much in taxes, taxed on this base, and you will provide access to at least 2 stations.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's more.
Mhm.
I worked in San Francisco, and they had 17 public access channels. Miami had 14. So the bigger cities always had more. In Albuquerque, we had 3, one of which was never used because it was supposed to be a Spanish version, and they just couldn't get it running. But there was the government channel where they played the council meetings and things like that. And then there was the public access channel where anybody could come in and make a show on whatever they wanted, literally.
Right.
And it covered the range. And it went from okay to really, really bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that within your time frame there, that you were all working together to bring the quality up.
Right. So it wasn't. So it was a couple of things. It was a matter of quality and quantity, because they weren't filling the channel.
Right.
Out of the 24 hours a day available channel, they were getting 2 to 3 hours worth of programming a day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't consistent because everybody would, someday we'd come in, we'd have a crew, we'd get, I say we, the people were there. Well, I'm not even sure.
Or they would use the same programming over and over again, such as the Retablo, and the
anything that we did,
and my joysticks that I gave them. So,
and I think what happened is when I found out that UPublic had taken over and they were looking for programming, I got the idea for. I was already doing New Mexico Tunes. Was I doing Retablos as well? I don't remember. We were already doing Jason and or Sean's programming when it was still quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing it at the government offices studio.
Mm.
There was a studio in the government offices in the big government building. I didn't even know that 500 or 506 Central Avenue existed. Didn't even know
Right.
that. So we were, I had a meeting with Rick and John,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked what they could do to help me. And, we want you to stay on, continue doing Sean's show and Jason's show. What could we do to help? And I said, get me a real studio with multiple cameras so I don't have to set it up each time, because that's what I had to do.
Mm.
And at the time we didn't, the only equipment that was being used was the equipment that I had. The only thing they basically provided is a room and some lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else on those programs was my equipment.
Mm.
And so they said, what could we do to help? And they said, well, we have this one studio, this one facility.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me when I'm getting short story long.
No, it's good.
They had this one facility.
I'm
and
reliving
they said,
it as you're telling it.
they had this one facility, and if I would be interested in working in the facility, I said, absolutely. Can I take a look at it? And so they gave me the keys to go over, and I looked at it. Of course, there was literally dust on these very expensive Panasonic cameras.
Oh, yeah.
There was dust everywhere. They hadn't been used. They hadn't been moved.
Oh.
They hadn't been tested. It was just like, I don't even know if this is going to work.
Yeah.
So I went back to them and I said, I'd love to be able to help, but you're at a point where you need to invest some time and effort into doing that. And so they said, okay. And I guess they finally went over and checked it out, because up until that time, they hadn't either. And a couple of days later, they got me a call and they said, how would you like to rebuild that studio, re-engineer that studio so it's working, and then create a program to develop producers using that studio? How much would you charge us for that?
Mm.
If I had been in Washington and it wasn't
Right.
public access, it would have been $30,000 a month.
Mm.
As it wasn't anywhere near that.
Right.
It was enough to, and I spent most of it, whatever I earned from them, I spent most of it on a studio anyway. But I agreed, as long as and this was not unusual for me, as long as the contract didn't go beyond 12 months. I always liked putting limitations on it,
Mm-hmm.
so that they didn't get crazy and say, oh, well, we like you, we're just going to keep you in that position, because that's not what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'll need 3 months to bring the studio back to full utilization, make sure all the equipment works, makes the lighting, everything is work, all the buttons work, et cetera, et cetera. And in that time,
So this was 2012.
you're
We're
better at
talking
dates.
like March 2012. I remember that they had that meeting where they brought in people who wanted to be producers, and that was in June of 2012.
Well, so my job was not only to re-engineer that studio so it was in working condition with 4
And
cameras.
that meeting was on 3rd Street. Did you have anything to do with 3rd Street?
I did the lighting at 3rd Street. I did all the lighting and did all the camera. I made it work with their switcher. Yeah. And did all the lighting. That's why those soft boxes are at 3rd Street. That's all I spent, 3 weekends over at 3rd Street doing all the lighting for them. It was really funny, because there was one point at which I'm on a ladder 20 feet in the air. There's, I don't know, 7 or 8 guys standing around looking at me. How many guys does it take to screw in a soft box? And I looked down and I said, does it bother anyone that the oldest guy in the room is at the top of the 20-foot ladder? Well, you're the only one who knows how to do that.
You're the
And
okay.
and at some point I
I mean,
was, right?
That's when you come down and you say, well, it's time that
Somebody else learns.
Right.
So also during the first 3 months of re-engineering the facility and bring it back to working, I had to develop a program for developing producers,
Mhm.
a complete program for developing courses, schedules, things like that. So by June, we were ready to pitch it and let them know that they could. Again, they had to sign up. They had to go through the training. I think a minimum of 4 or 5 courses that introduced it to them. We had we had a small rebellion where people who had worked for the previous administration weren't happy with the fact that they had to learn how to do things, that they were going to commit to schedules, things like that.
Mhm.
And we had some people drop out, and I ended up facing some questions at the Albuquerque City Council because they reported like, oh, we have this lady and she's been doing this for 3 years, and she didn't actually have a show. She would just get on and complain about her ailments, basically. Is what it boiled down to.
Look, lady, go get on YouTube.
Yeah. And that was the other thing. They weren't really aware or sensitive to the fact that the way people consumed visual information was changing.
Mm-hmm.
They still thought people are going to turn into channel 25 and 26 on cable and watches. And one of the things I wanted to do was say, move your programming to YouTube.
Yeah.
Move it over there because that's where this is going. Anyway.
And they started doing that.
Yeah. And they actually did start doing that.
And they did it back and forth. They would take things off of YouTube and put things on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
And it got pretty good. And so I spent a good 12 months there. I think at the end, we had 154 qualified producers. We had a complete working studio. And when I left and they asked me to stay on the end, I remember going to at our weekly team meetings, I said to Rick and John, my contract expires in 30 days.
Yeah.
And I think they both kind of panicked and they looked at each other and they said, well, what do we have to do to extend it? And I said, no, 12 months is 12 months. Everything I promised you is in place and more. And I'm moving on. And by that time, I think within a couple of months, the West contract came up, doing the same thing, re-engineering that studio. But that was just a series of problems without anyone around to resolve them. Mm-hmm. It's not that I didn't have television studio experience because I had worked at public access in Miami, San Francisco, and Fairfax before that. And always enjoyed it and learned a lot from each one of those. But this was a situation where the equipment, like I said, had been collecting dust. The previous administration just never used that studio. And the other thing too is the kind of the rule of public access is if you don't use it, then the cable company who's funding this to the tune of several $100,000 a year will figure out a way to take it away from you so they don't have to pay for it.
The same as working in university.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't use it, you lose it.
The same thing. Yeah.
Right. So that was that was a good experience, and it was very different from my government experience because it wasn't as rigorous. It was I think my contract was like 3 pages, and it had, please do this, and please do this, and if you do that, we'll be happy. And I did. I think they regretted that I didn't want to stay, and I think they kind of took it personally.
You were the most experienced person there in public access television or of any kind.
Right.
They were brand new at it.
And unfortunately, they went on and they kind of fell into that old trap where they were doing certain kind of programming, but not involving producers, not getting to YouTube, things like that. And eventually, this last iteration, they lost the contract back to the old company and or the old administration, and I haven't heard about it since. I haven't seen,
it takes a lot of organization and a lot of drive to keep it going. But I do remember that as a producer, I was one of the few people who got a show done because I got started before they started putting up roadblocks.
Right.
And bottlenecks.
And you had to do it with you had to have this kind of intro and this kind of, and you had to talk with their graphics person.
Right. Now we had all of the professional pieces in place. And I think other people did as well, but it wasn't, they decided or changed their minds or whatever. They decided, we need to have this theme throughout everything. So y'all got to change everything now.
By the time I left, not only did I have 154 qualified producers, we had built up 33 programs. And they were a range of programs from, religious television on Sundays to sports, to productions like yours, talk shows, to Janet's solar energy program. What was it? Something New Mexico, Solar New Mexico.
Yeah,
that Sean hosted.
Right.
So, so we had a big variety of. What's her name? The one of the dead people. What's her name?
Oh, Gail Rubin.
Gail Rubin. I just loved that show. That was so well planned.
But that was a series that was
right. That was we shot 13 episodes
Right.
in a week and a half, I think it was 13 complete episodes.
right.
So, and that was fun. So it wasn't like Sean and Jason where they had regular
She
weekly
gave me the
programming either.
DVDs.
She did?
Yeah, I have those.
Bless her heart.
Yeah.
She's a good person.
What's it called again?
Oh.
What did I don't know. She talks about dying and death and preparing for it, and she had that saying that just like you don't get pregnant from talking about it, you're not going
Yeah.
to die just because you're talking about
Right.
death.
And she was really
so
good.
Don't be afraid
Death
to talk about it.
Death Becomes You, Death, something like that. She wrote the book, and she was an expert at preparing for. She had survived cancer, right? Something like that.
I think so.
And
yeah.
she was an expert at it. What was really funny is I was working in the control room, which had a window between us and the studio, and every once in a while, Jason and Sean would be there to help me because they loved the production side of it as well. And she would say something, and Sean would go, like, you need to do whatever she's saying right there before you. It's so funny.
Well, I'll have to get the DVDs out. We'll watch them again.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
I can't remember the name of the show. It was a fun show. Anyway, there were 33 active
Goodbye.
programs. Goodbye.
A good goodbye.
154 producers and 33 active programs, because it was about organization
Mhm.
and it was about getting people to believe that you knew what you were talking about.
Mhm.
So when you told them, if you take these 4 courses, by the end of these 4 courses, you can call yourself a producer.
Yeah.
If you don't have those 4 courses, then you're just somebody dabbling in public access and your program is going to turn out. And I couldn't let that happen. Right. It was either, and that's where I got in trouble with the city council, because I was insisting that everybody who had a program prior to that had to go through the 4 courses.
Mhm.
And some people were going to the city council, their city council members, and saying, this guy is forcing me to do this. And
And it wasn't like it was costing them anything.
No.
They were free classes.
No, well, I used to charge $10.
Well, when you started off, they were free.
Right. And what happened
if they
is,
had gotten in there right at the beginning and done the classes, you probably wouldn't have charged to begin with.
well, I charged only because people would sign up and not show up.
Yeah.
So I started charging for the classes. And then at some point I said, all right, if you can't pay for it, bring a can of food
Mhm.
and I'll donate that to the food pantry,
Right.
to the food.
Right. And I think the money you did collect just went to like toilet paper and
Yeah, it went to
things like that
supplies. It went
anyway.
to maintenance and supplies. Yeah.
keeping the bathrooms.
Because I did
and
everything. I
stuff.
mean, I was not only did I have to buy the stuff to clean the bathroom, I had to clean the bathroom.
Oh my goodness.
So, but I got a lot of volunteer help. I'd always say, if you're here on Thursdays, if you can be here on Thursdays, it's housekeeping day, and
Yeah.
I got the mop and the bucket.
You always had a real good attitude, man.
Yeah, I've never had. It's hard to get me in a bad attitude unless you're shooting at me, and then I'm going to yell back at you.
So within that job, within the job that you had at West, reconfiguring, overhauling their studio, making everything integrated, work together, within those positions, what kind of problems did you solve that helped you going forward to be able to solve future tech problems?
So it's interesting. So when you look at the facility that they had at Public Access, the
Mhm.
500 C Street, their equipment was current to about 2010. Right. Now it would last a lot longer. There's no reason. It was an HD, the
It was
cameras.
all usable.
Yeah, it was all usable. It was HD by that time, so it was an SD. They had great Blackmagic equipment in the director's studio, so they had a lot of equipment that was pretty good for that period in time. For
Mhm.
it was there was better after 2010, but that's where they stopped, at 2010. The advantage to going on to West was they had spent $250,000 on equipment and building out the studio, and the equipment was still in boxes in the storage room next to the studio. And that equipment was circa 2013, 2014. So although it had this very similar brand names like Blackmagic and Panasonic cameras and things like that, they were the next iterations of all of this. And there were slight changes, SDI connections instead of HDMI connections. And their studio was, they had the Ray studio behind the bleachers that rolled out. So they had this wonderful studio with wonderful lighting and expensive rollout bleachers and
a little
equipment.
control room.
And the
up
control
above.
room
Yeah.
that was filled with audio and video production equipment that wasn't connected to anything.
Mhm.
And so that the interesting thing about that is, although it wasn't, there were points at which after I inventoried all the equipment and kind of drew the diagram, I still have pictures of it, as a matter of fact. After I inventoried all the equipment and I drew the diagram of how it was going to work, I realized that they were still missing other equipment.
Right.
And it was about $30,000 worth of really, really important equipment. And I had
Yeah.
to go tell them that. I
Mhm.
know you spent $250,000. And because this was a
Because they overbought lights.
Yeah.
And they
Oh,
underbought speaker
right.
and
Monitor,
things
studio
that they
monitors.
needed. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, so not only was this equipment in boxes, a lot of it was equipment that would never be used.
Field equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of,
that.
remember
There were
we had
Apple boxes. There was
things that
C
you would-
stands. There
Right.
was
all
things
kinds
that
of things. And that
you
was
had no use
because
for.
it was, what's his name?
Yeah.
Grub. Not
No, it
Grub.
wasn't Grub. It's the other guy, and I can't think of his name right now.
I can't either. He had
It's
a
probably
nickname
better
too.
that way. We don't need to talk about
who
him.
who was a film guy, not a television
He
guy.
had worked in television.
He had.
Yeah.
Well, of course, maybe he accommodated the idea that some television work is done in the field, because
Yeah,
there was a
that's true.
whole part of the storage
true.
room that I would go, how about if I sell that
Yeah.
and then use that? And they go, no, nonprofits can't do that. We
Yeah.
we can't just sell it outright like that.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. All of this stuff had been donated to them.
Mm.
And as a matter of fact, I can't remember what it was, but when we rechristened the studio, it became the such and such studio of name because they made the 250,000, and then I did get my 30,000,
Mm.
another 30,000 because they said, they explained to him what had happened. I'm not sure they told him the absolute truth. But by the time I left, again, they had a working studio.
I remembered his name. But now I don't want to say
Don't
it.
say it. Yeah, don't say it because
I'm going to
we don't
write it
wanna-
down.
because he actually moved to Atlanta. I think
Uh-huh.
he went to a film because Atlanta, Georgia was getting big into the film industry, and
That's
I think
right.
that's why he moved there. Yeah. Anyway, so that caused us through the question. Oh, we have no idea. Well, I'll answer that question in just a minute, Shamika. So we solved that problem. We built out that studio, and they kind of did the same thing to me. It was I think it was a 3-month contract. It was very short. It was
Six.
a fixed.
It had to be
Was it
6 months.
6?
Yeah.
Maybe it was 6, and it was a fixed price. And again, I wasn't going to profit for it because a lot of it went to the people that I hired to work with me, Sean and
Right.
Sue. And at the end of 6 months, they said, "Well, okay, what we need now is for you to run this facility."
Mhm.
And I had no desire. I'm
Right.
sitting behind this studio council right here is probably as long as I've sat in one place anyway. And I told them I didn't care to, but I would recommend Sean and Sue to do it.
Mhm.
And they did it they had a 12-month contract and they did it okay, but it was hard. The West was going through a transition
Right.
of going from a nonprofit women's-based organization to a profitable business enterprise, business support organization.
Right.
And the studio was just not going to be used as much. They didn't make that part of like, look, if you're going to come in and be a part of this business incubator, you've got
Yeah.
this great studio.
Yeah.
And I thought, you've got this studio with live streaming capability. You can
Yeah.
make it and try. They just didn't. And I don't
Well,
think they still.
I don't think, and this is important for all business people, all entrepreneurs, I don't think they really had a good idea why they needed that studio and what they were going to do with it. What is its purpose?
Right.
Why do we need it? Is it really important?
Well, the answer
before they
is
spend all that money on it.
the answer is what we've designed in the create a campaign framework, right? That is, you create a piece of content very easily. You've got a studio. All you have to do is stand up in front of a microphone, beautifully lit with Pope Joy quality lighting, and look at the camera and tell your story, and put it on YouTube, and then put it on podcast. It's, all that facility was there, and all you had to do was show up once a week and talk to the camera telling another part of your story. And they just didn't know how to pitch that. It wasn't part of business, small business. People that are in business incubators are how to make sales, right? Yeah. And then how to complain about not being able to make sales because your marketing.
I don't think you have to teach that. I think people just come by that naturally.
Well, pretty soon you find out that without marketing generating prospects, you're not going to have any sales, no matter how good a product you have. And that's when people are in incubators. They're, sole proprietors of businesses that they've invented, either with a product or an idea, and they just think people are going to love it enough that they're just going to buy it out of hand. And it doesn't work that way. I don't care how good the product is.
Well, getting back to what you learned as you were putting those studios together, what you were doing in your capacity as a developer of producers, what skills and lessons did you learn that really helped you in as you went through the following years and in solving problems?
So what made it interesting for me is up until that point, literally up until 2010, I was an independent contractor to a set of agencies that didn't like talking to anybody, and they loved the idea that here was an independent contractor that wasn't going to talk to anybody else anyway. So if there was a debate about anything, it was always in some contracting director's office, and we could yell all we want. We'd come to a resolution, and we'd both walk away quietly. They were happy with what they got. They were happy with what I got. And the only person I could talk to about some of it would be my family. And they didn't give a darn one way or the other. So the difference was, here I was having to deal with a lot of different kinds of stakeholders that had an investment in all of this and its success. And my job was to get it done. And my normal approach was to get out of my way so I can get this done. Right? There's saying like, get
on board or
get on board or get out of the way. There's some saying that goes like that. And I used to think it, I never said it out loud, because I know that when you're dealing with an organization that's public access, it's not a profit organization. It has people that are responsible to whatever they do for the cable company that they're working for. They don't actually work for the cable company, but to city governments. So they have a constituency. So what was interesting for me was having to deal with all these stakeholders, all these various entities who all had some part of this or some interest in part of its success, but didn't know how to do it. They were, as much as I love Rick and John, they weren't the best organizers in the world.
Right.
They were product guys, right? The film industry let them sell stuff to the film industry. So they weren't the best organizers, and they weren't the best planners. And so when they said we need a course, they couldn't even tell you what kind of course they wanted. And then you were dealing with the producers who had come from a mindset of, I don't need to know this. I just come in on Wednesday nights and I make my show. And sometimes my crew is there. And if they are, we have the show. And sometimes my crew isn't. And if we don't, whether they're not, we don't. Then you go to West, nonprofit. Money is a funny thing in nonprofit organizations. When I saw all that field equipment and I said, that field equipment is $60,000 worth of field equipment. I need $30,000 to finish the studio. Let me sell that. There was panic in that room. Like, oh no, that's not going to happen. No way we can sell that. Why not? Well, because it was given to, we're a nonprofit. It was given to us. We started selling.
But it's just sitting there and never going to be used.
So there was a whole new level of I don't want to call it corporate interaction, but stakeholder interaction that I hadn't had experience with in the past, and that I took the troubleshooting approach to. What do I have to do to solve this problem and keep this group of people happy without angering this group of people, or vice versa. And so that interaction of having to solve problems that were people problems and not technical problems, still applying troubleshooting kind of principles to it. Like, oh, well, let me see if I try this. And what I discovered is one of the things that one of the best things you can do when those things take place is know more about it than they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always went in with something in writing that said, okay, here's how I want to do this. And when you do that, when you have a plan of some kind, when you have it down on paper, or in my case, presentation mode, because I'd have it on paper and then I'd turn it into presentation, and I'd get up there in 20 minutes. By the end of the 20 minutes, they're going like, oh, okay, well, he obviously knows more about this than we do. Let's let him do it. And so you had to pitch it.
Yeah.
And I remember having to make the same pitch, not only to the management of the public access station, to the management of the local cable company, and to the I was going to say the management, but the city council.
Right.
Doing the same presentation. I'm the person that has the record for the longest presentation allowed at the city council, because up until the time I got there, they only allowed you to get up there for 2 minutes. You had to tell your story in 2 minutes.
Right.
And so I had the 2-minute story. I told the 2-minute story, and then one of the council members said, wait, that can't be everything. I said, no, but that's what I can tell you in 2 minutes. And they said, well, go ahead and do the whole presentation.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Because a whole bunch of us went
Right.
to tell other pieces,
Right.
thinking everybody's only going to get 2 minutes,
Right.
and then they let you tell the whole thing. So
Right.
we just
Kind of sat back and not had to worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a plan.
I remember that.
We had a plan. So that was the benefit of doing it like that. And again, the part of me that loves troubleshooting, and the part of me that loves helping other people, because these were all, West at the time was a nonprofit that supported women building their own business. How could I turn that down? And the public access station was trying to get programming on the air that was public programming, no matter what the topic was. And I had real interesting conversations with guys that just wanted to talk about marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a show out of it for them. And I told them how they were going to do it without looking like a bunch of
Stoners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we got some comments going on there. How about we
Okay,
read
let's
through
see what
those,
we got.
see if we have anything we need to address.
Let me see. Shamika Langford, what do these people still make videos about fan treasure? I have no idea. Shamika,
because other people show up and watch it.
Exactly.
And that's enough encouragement to keep them going.
Yeah. So MJ says, hi, Toby and Shelley and
Hey.
group. She's in. There's just saying hi to each other. Let's see. I think that's what we got there. So yeah. Shamika, we can't answer that question because
I just answered it.
Oh, okay.
Because other people show up and watch it.
Right.
And they're going to keep doing it until nobody shows up anymore. That's how it is. So we're just going to keep doing this because we love it.
We love what we do. We love helping other
That's
people, and we
right.
love talking about what we're talking about. So
So I know that people come to you. For instance, Cheryl Brown comes to you, says, I have a GoPro, it's not working, or it's not working the way I want it to, or we need lighting, or we're going to need somebody with a drone. And they come to you. Everybody goes to Toby for answers, right? From UPublic to West to Cheryl Brown or Cheryl and Coffee to me.
Janet, to you, to
But we all come to you because we have great confidence that you will find an answer to our problem. So what do you do with that?
So I think there's at least 3 elements to that. Number one, I still have a hard problem turning anybody down, right? It's hard for me to say, sorry, can't help you. I don't think I've ever done that, actually. Even to people
Unless
who,
you can help them because you don't know
right.
how.
And I will be honest with you, I don't know how to help you with that. I've never had any experience, but let me see if I can find somebody to do that for you. So that's always an alternative. So that's the first thing. It's hard for me to turn anyone down. When it's a woman, it's especially hard because I know it's hard for them to ask a man. I don't mean it's difficult, but it's, they don't want to be put down for not knowing how to fix a schmozzle on a doohickey, you know?
Okay.
And so it's especially hard for them. And I had this experience with my daughters. My daughters were like that, you know, where they were, Dad, I don't know, can I help me with this? And I don't know, Dad, you may not know, I don't know if I can get there, you know, that the nerves associated with asking for somebody else for help. And I think it's especially hard for women asking men. And I have a soft spot. One, it comes to that. And I think it comes from raising 4 daughters. And so when, especially someone like Janet or Cheryl or you ask for help, it's real easy for me to say yes. The second thing, or the third thing, is that it gives me the opportunity to stay on top of things. Because generally speaking, when they're bringing something to me, it's a problem that they don't have an answer to because they picked up a new piece of technology or they picked up a new idea that requires new technology that they kind of don't know what it is. You know, and it's not that I have an experience. Do I have experience with GoPros? Yes. Do I have experience with Osmo Pockets? Yes. Do I have experience with drones? Yes. Did I have experience with a Zoom PodTrack before? No, but I went out and bought one, learned how to use it. And I'm confident that I'm as good with a Zoom PodTrack. I can answer any question on a Zoom PodTrack before, and I can on a Rodecaster Pro or this said headset or StreamYard. And that's because the technology, I'm not intimidated by the technology. It's easy for me to look at something and say, oh, okay, I can and you've probably seen my attitude. I either like a piece of technology or I don't like it. And it doesn't have anything to do with this is hard to learn, hard to use, it's whether it fits into the way I do things or not. You know, we were using that application this afternoon, Blaster, what?
Oh, Thumbnail Blaster.
Yeah. So I used that for a while. It was kind of cool. But then I got comfortable. I got Snappa.
Yeah.
Liked the way it worked. It was more in line with the way that I did things. And I haven't been back to Thumb Blaster since, you know, until today. And it's not because I don't know how to use it. It's because I found something that worked my way. And I think that's the big thing. But when somebody comes and asks you for the favor of helping them, I think it's rare that I don't help them. Even if I don't know about what's going on, because it gives me the opportunity to find out what's going on. That's rare. It's rare that I don't know, because I've used so many products, both software and hardware products, audio, video, production products. You know, I built a Blackmagic live streaming kit that should have been the size of a small van into a 2-foot by 2-foot cube. And we did dozens of efforts with that, and it worked. It worked every time. The only stumbling block was
as long as the internet
hotels.
Worked.
Yeah. But so I learned a lot about live streaming from that. A lot of people, you may not know this story, but the reason I got into live streaming, I'd actually worked on a live streaming team in Washington back it was either 2008 or 2009 before I went to Afghanistan. And it required a truckload full of equipment and 10 or 11 team members. And I thought, gee, this is never going to go anywhere if it's required like this. Well, by 2014, when Forrest Fenn asked me to live stream his giveaway event, it had been reduced. Pardon me? Raffle. For, what's her name? The bronze jar for Raynell Jacobson. The technology had been reduced to a red box that big. And I thought, cool, but the back end stuff was the red box was expected to be tied to one camera. I started wondering, how do I do this with 4 cameras, audio, multiple microphones? And that's how we ended up with a 2 by 2 foot cube, which handled those kinds of situations. But it started with that little red box. At that point, at the point that I started, which was January, I think the event was January 14th. Between January 14th and my birthday.
You mean 2014? Oh, I mean, okay.
The Raynell Jacobson event was January 14th. It
was more like 4th, but it's okay. I don't know.
It was early in January 2014.
Right.
By my birthday, my 65th birthday, at which I was supposed to retire on January 17th, I announced a new business called Streaming New Mexico based on this little box. And what I would do, I made a probably $12,000 investment in putting it all together, and we went to town. And Shelley was part of it. Shelley was definitely part of the team.
That's right. I did
So-
a lot of the interviews.
Yeah. So,
Live interviews. That's
so
where
I
got
think part of it
started
is
with
not
that.
not being afraid to take on those kinds of challenges, knowing there's nothing. You may spend some money. It has to be money that you're willing to lose if necessary.
Mm.
I didn't lose it, and made it back. And then doing it until you realize it's time to go do something else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because at that point, YouTube was starting
starting to blossom.
and Facebook was starting to do live streaming, and
So I don't know how many of you know this story. After we sold Streaming New Mexico, Shelley and I probably didn't have much in the way of communications between the time it was sold in like October of 2016. And then when did you call me? January of 2017. And she said, we need to start a YouTube channel on the
no, I
first.
said you need to start hunting for the treasure again.
Oh, right. So that we could have a YouTube channel.
And then we decided we wanted to do
Right.
live streaming on YouTube, and then we decided we would do it about that.
Right.
So
And
let's see if we have any other comments.
I'm
that we need to
confident that
get into. If you guys have any questions about technology, live streaming, podcasting, or blogging technology, or anything related to that, please put them into the chat, and we'd love to answer them for you.
so just say hi to
South
Bernard
Africa.
Gelderblom from
Welcome,
South Africa.
Bernard. Thank you for
Welcome.
being here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. So, so if you take all of that experience and put it to what we're doing right now, basically we offer what I would call 3 products. Starting from the top is the creative campaign framework, right? So create one piece of content, leverage it into a lot of other pieces of content.
Mhm.
But without you having a live stream to be able to create that initial piece of content, then you don't have a way to do that. And that becomes the problem. The problem that people have to face is, you talk about your creative campaign from distribute it to podcasts and blogs and 60-second promos, etc. But I don't even have a way to produce the first thing, because live streaming for me right now is I go to YouTube. I live stream to YouTube or I live stream to Facebook.
Mhm.
Right now, you and I are using StreamYard to live stream to 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 different locations, 7 different channels on Facebook and YouTube.
And we could do Twitch if we wanted, but we just
We don't
only
find
do gaming on there.
Twitch isn't our audience.
That's right.
And there will be others eventually, because each of the big platforms is incorporating live streaming into their product line. LinkedIn is going to have, once they get their act together, it'll have a live streaming facility.
Well, they have live streaming on LinkedIn, but it's a limited, it's one of those beta rollout things.
Right.
Yeah.
Twitch is going to have it.
Amazon.
I'm sorry, not Twitch. Twitter. Who
Yeah.
bought Periscope?
Twitter owns
Yeah.
Periscope.
So that's what they're going
but
to
right
do.
now they're doing audio.
Right. They are doing audio, the social audio. We talked about that last week. Amazon is starting to offer a live service for certain of its influencers. So this is the time has passed where you can say, oh, this is an idea whose time has come. The idea came. It's behind us now. If you're not part of the live streaming generation, if you're not using live streaming as an inherent part of your product marketing strategy, you're already behind the 8 ball. Now, the challenge for a lot of people is, how do I build out a studio that looks like Toby and Shelley's studio? You don't have to. We offer that. The second service that we offer is we offer the studio service. We offer the ability to have
We
a
even
show
have
like
a little
this.
video about that.
Pardon me?
We have a little video.
You know
about
what? I'm going to play that video right.
that.
Aren't you good?
Ah,
Here's our here.
you
You
don't have
can
to talk about it.
you can hear the story. I'm not going to have to talk about it.
Have you ever had a fantastic idea for a Facebook group, YouTube channel, podcast, online course, workshop, or an entire business, but gave up on it because of the online technology involved in making it happen? Or have you started the process only to find it requires an incredible amount of time, effort, and expense to create valuable digital content? Investing in this kind of social media content creation often means you use up all your resources wrangling technology instead of working with clients or sharing your message. Hi, I'm Shelley Carney with AGK Media Studio, your online solution to live streaming or recording video and audio presentations. The AGK Media Studio can put you in front of your audience immediately and eliminate the confusion and frustration of every erratic social media platform and unpredictable software integration. When you produce your videos with AGK Media Studio, you're the expert producer and we're your crew. We're here to support you and handle all the tech so you can focus on your topic and your audience. With our streamlined process, there's no editing necessary and your videos are ready as soon as you finish your presentation. Working with us means you can produce consistent, high-quality, live, interactive online videos now, today. We take care of the tech with our VIP service and give you a professional look that inspires admiration and respect. It starts with preparation. We will validate and certify your home office and branding for professional video best practices. Next is the production phase, where we record your presentation while embedding your branding and music into your video for a polished finish. Then, when you finish recording, you'll immediately receive video and audio files ready to upload to your channel or online teaching platform. What would it mean for your business if you could complete and upload all the video materials you need in just a few hours? Schedule a consultation call with AGK Media Studio today, and let's start live streaming or recording your video tomorrow. Yeah.
So we have clients who produce their own live streams, in one case, their own video. What do you need?
We'll put the chat back up because there's chat going on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
Didn't mean to.
So we have clients who are producing their own, in one case, monthly live streams, in another case, weekly live streams. And you wouldn't know that they're basically using our facilities to do that. We handle all the behind the scenes production up to and including starting the program, streaming it to their channels, and then ending the program for them with all the assets that you see, music and logos and things like that.
Then we take the audio and upload it to their podcast.
And that's where the creative campaign framework comes in. But at some point, we can't produce your initial piece of content. It has to be you, right? Once you do that, once you've produced that initial piece of content, whether it is pre-recorded or live stream, then you have a way to jump into the creative campaign framework, which is the second product we offer. That's how we help you do that. Live streaming is number one, but there's a third piece to that, and it's troubleshooting. And the people who become members of our masterclass actually get access to our troubleshooting efforts. So whenever they have a problem, they can schedule a call and we can walk them through troubleshooting that problem until it is resolved. Now, I'll be honest with you, we have had situations where the resolution was press this button and turn your microphone around this way and you'll be fine. And we've had solutions where I had to say, you bought the wrong product. And I don't like saying that, but there's points at which you have to be honest with your client to do that. So those are services we offer to our clients and they're happy with them. And the benefit is, what they're getting is the benefit of, you know, I was going to say 35, but that was my career. It's now 45 years worth of experience doing this. And the openness and willingness to help others, because that's, you know, that's the benefit I get. That's how I can go to sleep at night and sleep well, knowing that I've helped others to do this. So do we have any questions? Let me see.
Got a question?
Bernard says, thank you. Been a rough couple of weeks. What are they talking about? Yeah, isn't that a nice clip, MJ? That's a good one. So, Shamika, I'm not intentionally ignoring your questions, madam. The simple fact of the matter is this show is not about the topic that you're asking questions about. I'm going to. We don't have that
We're
show.
happy to answer any questions about technology, live streaming, blogging, and podcasting.
Right. And it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's just that that's not what the topic of this show is called, Messages and Methods. And it's about the creative campaign framework, live streaming, podcasting, and troubleshooting. So, and it has nothing to do with that other topic. So, but there are shows that do
there's
cover
other
that
showe
topic that I'm
Yeah.
sure would be happy
Happy.
to help you with your questions. So
Absolutely.
we as of June 6th last year, we have no opinions on the matter. So we're busy with other things. We've moved on.
Yeah.
All right. Final words. Any more questions? Anything I can help you with?
I care about your show. Well, thank you.
Okay, here we go. What's the difference? Answer this. What's the difference between podcast and streaming?
All right. So what we're doing here is streaming. It's live, and you can watch it on YouTube or Facebook. That's where we're streaming to, and we're using a product called StreamYard to enable us to do that easily and professionally. A podcast is audio only, and what you do is you create an audio file, which is what we'll take from our stream at the end. StreamYard allows us to download the audio file of this show. Then we will upload it to our distributor, which we use, Anchor.fm. And Anchor takes that and hosts it for us, as well as distributing it to a variety of podcast platforms, including Spotify and Google Play. So a podcast, then you can download into your phone and just listen to it anytime you want.
At your own convenience, right?
Right. Whereas with video, you're more likely to sit still for podcasts are popular because you can download it, take it with you, listen to it in your car or on the walk.
So let me give you an example of what Shelley's talking about. This is our site on Anchor FM. This is HK Media Studio, and we post the audio versions of all our shows on this channel on Anchor FM. And if you want to listen to it, you can go to any of these podcast distributors: Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, and
That's our
a copy of our RSS feed. But every one of our shows, once we're finished, the three shows, right?
All three go there now.
The podcasting and live streaming channel, Messages and Methods, and Shelley Carney Live Stream Coach. Go to the HK Media Studio in the form of podcasts. And one of the benefits of using StreamYard is at the end of this show, when we say end the broadcast, it saves an audio file. So all we have to do is download that file, upload it to Anchor, and we have a podcast for tonight's show. And so the podcast isn't live. It's pre-recorded, and you listen to it at your convenience. Now, you can do that. You know, some of you are watching us on YouTube right now. You know that eventually this video will be on the YouTube channel as well. But with a podcast, you can download that podcast onto your smart device and listen to it when you're working out or cooking or whatever you're doing. So, but that's the beginning of the creative campaign framework. Shelley then takes that audio file, she transcribes it in a product called Descript, and she posts it to a blog. And so the creative campaign framework is how to take that one piece of content, your stream, your live stream, and turn it into dozens of other pieces of content to increase your presence on the various social media platforms. That's what it's all about.
Just the same as people prefer different ways of communication. Some people will Facebook message me. Some people email me. Some people want to text or call. And each person is different as to what they prefer as a communication method. They also prefer different ways of ingesting content. So they may prefer to watch a video, they may prefer to listen to a podcast, or they may prefer to read an article like our blog. So we try to make that available to everybody so that anybody who's interested can enjoy our content, right? In whatever is their preferred method, and hopefully in whatever is their preferred platform. So we're available on Facebook. We have a presence on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and a little bit on TikTok, and a little bit on Twitter, and a little bit
Instagram.
on
Did you say
Twitch.
Instagram? Yeah.
And, you know, we're out there. People can find us. And hopefully we hit some of you where you enjoy it the most. And that sounded dirty. Time to leave.
I'm going to give you an out here. And
thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate you and all your great chat tonight. Thanks so much for that as well. We will be back tomorrow, Thursday, on the Shelley Carney live stream coach channel, as well as our Facebook presence, including our Facebook group, Leveraging Your Content. So if you're interested in becoming a part of that group, go to Facebook, check that out, Leveraging Your Content, and we'd love to have you there. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about how the entrepreneur, the home-based entrepreneur, can set up their studio, their home studio, and all the pieces that work well together, and so that you have the fewest technology problems possible. So I hope that you'll join us for that if you are interested in creating a home studio for yourself. Anything else?
good night, Shelley.
Good night, Toby.
Good night, group. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for joining us for the AGK Media Studio podcast with Shelley Carney and Toby Younis. Please subscribe, leave a great review, and comment with questions or ideas for future shows. Share our podcast with your family and friends and discover how you can become a creative campaign producer at agkmedia.studio or join our Facebook group, Leveraging Your Content. Check the show notes for links and resources, and please come back again next week.